The cowboy made one Christmas wish, and she appeared on the train platform that morning. The sky over the western plains of New Aurora glimmered with a soft, icy blue. It was Christmas Eve, and the twin suns of the distant planet were beginning to set, casting long, thin shadows across the snow-covered land. The wind whispered through the tall, frozen grasses, carrying the faint scent of pine from the distant settlements. Jace Callahan tightened his coat against the chill, pulling the wide-brimmed hat further down over his eyes. He had always been a cowboy at heart, even on a planet light years away from old Earth. The settlers of New Aurora had built their homes here decades ago, bringing with them old traditions, old dreams, and old hardships. Life was hard in the frontier, harsher than anything on Earth, but Jace had learned to endure. He rode the rolling plains, herded the alien cattle that grazed on the frozen tundra, and made sure the settlement stayed safe from wandering wildlife. But tonight, Jace felt a heaviness in his chest. He had seen many Christmases alone. Friends and family had either passed on or remained on distant planets. He had spent years helping others, giving everything he had to keep the colony alive, yet he had never stopped to wish for something for himself. Tonight, that changed. Jace leaned against the wooden fence that marked the edge of his small homestead. The frost bit at his fingers, but he did not move. He gazed at the horizon, where the stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the deep, alien sky. I just want someone to understand," he murmured to himself. His voice carried over the empty plains. "Someone to share this life with, someone who isn't afraid of the cold or the danger or the loneliness, someone human." He closed his eyes and lifted his face toward the stars. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, just as he whispered the last words of his wish, a strange shimmer passed through the sky, a faint ripple, almost like heat over a desert, but cooler, more distant, and infinitely more mysterious. Jace blinked. "Must be my imagination," he muttered, though part of him didn't believe it. He shook his head and mounted his horse, Dust, a sleek, strong creature with a silvery coat that blended with the snow. He rode toward the settlement, the cold wind stinging his cheeks, and thought about the wish again. He had always been practical, believing only in what he could see and touch. But tonight, maybe, just maybe, the universe had heard him. The settlement of New Aurora was quiet as he entered. Most of the settlers were inside their homes, preparing for the holiday. Small lights twinkled from windows, reflecting in the icy streets. Smoke curled from chimneys, carrying the warm scent of roasting food. Jace slowed Dust to a walk and looked around. He had always loved this view, the mixture of human life and alien wilderness. The settlers were fragile compared to the harsh world around them, but somehow they thrived. As he passed the central plaza, Jace noticed something strange. A faint glow shimmered near the train platform. The colony's train, an old relic adapted for interstellar travel, sat silently on the tracks. Its metal sides gleamed in the last light of the setting suns. And there, standing alone on the platform, was a figure. Jace squinted. The figure was a woman. She was dressed in a long coat that seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it held the light of the stars themselves. She clutched a small satchel to her chest, and her hair blew gently in the cold wind. Her eyes, wide and curious, scanned the quiet settlement, but they did not seem to recognize anything. Jace felt a strange pull in his chest, an unexplainable connection that made his breath catch. Something about her seemed familiar, even though he had never seen her before. "Hey there," he called, his voice rough from the cold and long ride. The woman turned toward him, and for a moment the world seemed to still. She smiled faintly, but there was confusion in her eyes. I don't know how I got here," she said softly. I was somewhere else and now I'm here." Jace blinked. "Somewhere else? You mean you came on the train?" She shook her head. "No, I wasn't on the train, I just appeared. One moment I was in my home and the next I was here." Jace studied her carefully. Something about the way she spoke, the way she moved, was extraordinary, yet utterly human. There was no fear in her eyes, only wonder and a hint of hope. "Well, this is New Aurora," he said slowly. "And this is the train platform. You're safe here. I can take you to the settlement." She nodded, clutching her satchel tighter. "Thank you. I don't even know your name." "Jace Callahan," he replied, tipping his hat. "You are—" "Ilara," she said simply. "Just Ilara." Jace offered his arm to help her onto dust, and she took it without hesitation. As they rode through the settlement, the few settlers who had noticed them stopped to stare. A woman riding a horse alone was not unusual, but a woman appearing out of nowhere on Christmas Eve was something else entirely. Whispers spread quickly. "Miracle, Christmas magic. The stars have answered a wish." Jace didn't know what to think. He had never believed in miracles, not really. But as he looked at Alara, he felt something inside him shift. Perhaps some wishes were meant to be more than dreams. They reached his homestead, a small, sturdy cabin built of metal and wood. Smoke curled from the chimney and the door creaked open as he stepped inside. He gestured for her to sit by the fire. "You must be cold," he said, removing her coat and hanging it on a hook. She shivered but smiled gratefully. "I am," she admitted. "But it's more than that. I feel different, like I'm supposed to be here, but I don't know why." Jace nodded, understanding more than he could explain. "Sometimes life works that way. Things happen and we don't know why at first, but eventually we do." They talked for hours. Jace shared stories of life on New Aurora, how the settlers built the colony from nothing, how they defended it from storms and alien beasts, and how even in the harshest conditions, people found ways to celebrate life. Alara listened intently, her eyes shining with curiosity and wonder. When he spoke of loneliness, of Christmases spent alone, she reached out and placed a hand over his. "Maybe you're not meant to be alone anymore," she said softly. Jace looked at her, feeling warmth spread through his chest. "Maybe you're right," he said, almost in disbelief. He had wished for someone, but he never expected the universe to answer in this way. Outside, the wind howled across the plains, carrying the distant echoes of alien creatures and the faint glimmer of stars. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Two humans, brought together by chance, or perhaps by something greater, sat together, sharing stories, laughter, and the quiet magic of a Christmas Eve that neither would ever forget. As the night grew deeper, Jace realized something important. The universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders, but it also had a way of listening, of answering, and sometimes, just sometimes, it rewarded those who dared to hope. Alara leaned back in her chair, looking at the fire. "Do you think this is a miracle?" she asked. Jace smiled, tipping his hat toward the flames. "I don't know yet, but if it is, I'll make sure we make the most of it." And for the first time in a long while, he felt the true warmth of hope. The stars outside seemed to shine brighter that night, as if winking at the two humans who had found each other on a cold, distant world. For Jace Callahan and for Ilara, the first step of something extraordinary had begun. And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, the universe smiled. The morning sun rose slowly over New Aurora, casting pale golden light across the frost-covered plains. The twin suns painted the sky with streaks of lavender and orange, reflecting on the icy crystals scattered over the settlement. Jace Callahan was already up, feeding dust and checking the small herd of alien cattle grazing near the cabin. The night had been quiet, with only the occasional howl of distant creatures reminding him that the frontier was never truly safe. Alara had slept in the cabin, wrapped in a blanket near the fire. She had seemed peaceful, though a little confused. She had no memory of how she had appeared on the platform, and Jace had not pressed her for details. He understood that some mysteries were meant to be unraveled slowly. "Morning dust," he murmured, scratching behind the horse's ears. The animal nickered softly, steam rising from its nostrils in the cold air. "Looks like we've got another long day ahead." Jace turned toward the cabin, thinking of Alara. She was already up, standing near the window, gazing at the snow-covered plains. She seemed fascinated by everything, the distant mountains, the alien trees, the glimmering frost. "You're up early," Jace said, stepping inside. Alara turned and smiled. "I couldn't sleep. Everything is so different, so alive." Jace nodded. "The frontier can do that to you. It's quiet, but it's never empty." Breakfast was simple: rehydrated eggs, bread, and hot cocoa from the settlement's communal supplies. They ate in silence for a few moments, listening to the wind outside. Finally, Jace spoke. "Today, we'll take you around the colony. You need to see what life is like here. You need to know the people, the places, everything." Alara nodded. "I'd like that. I want to understand this place." "And you," Jace laughed softly. "You're asking a lot for someone who just appeared out of nowhere." She smiled, shrugging. "Maybe I was meant to be here." The first stop was the train platform. It was a simple structure, metal and wood, with a few benches and a small control booth. Settlers moved about, loading supplies and boarding the train. Jace noticed their curious glances at Alara but ignored them. She had nothing to fear here. "This is where it all begins," he said, guiding her to the edge of the platform. "The train is our lifeline. It brings supplies, news, and sometimes new settlers. Without it, we'd be stuck." Alara looked at the train, its metal sides glinting in the sunlight. "It's beautiful," she said. "But you mean people ride this across space?" Jace chuckled. "In a way, yes. It's not like Earth trains. It jumps from one settlement to another using a series of orbital tunnels. Gets you there faster than most spaceships, and it's reliable." As they walked, a group of settlers approached, curious and cautious. One of them, a young man with a woolen hat and a grin, stepped forward. "Jace, who's your friend?" he asked. "This is Alara," Jace said. She's new." The settlers exchanged puzzled looks. "New?" one of them asked. "You mean from another settlement?" Alara shook her head. I don't know, I just appeared here." A hush fell over the group. Then slowly one of the older settlers, a woman named Marla, stepped forward. Her eyes were kind but sharp. "Well, Christmas miracles do happen," she said, smiling. "Come on, Alara. We'll help you get settled. You'll see, this colony can be harsh, but it's full of good people." Jace felt a flicker of relief. The settlers were cautious, yes, but they were open-minded. That was the strength of humanity. They could see beyond the unusual and help each other, even in strange circumstances. Next, Jace took Alara to the workshop. It was a bustling place, full of settlers repairing equipment, crafting tools, and preparing for the harsh winter. Robots moved about, assisting with heavy tasks, but the settlers were the real backbone. "Here," Jace said, pointing. "Most of our technology is adapted from Earth, but modified for Aurora. It's not fancy, but it works, and it keeps people alive." Alara watched closely as Jace demonstrated how to repair a broken generator. Her hands were quick, precise, and surprisingly strong. Jace couldn't help but notice how naturally she adapted to the work. "You have skills," he said, impressed. She shrugged. "I've always liked fixing things, understanding how they work. I guess it just comes naturally." By midday, they were walking through the market area. Settlers sold food, clothing, and small trinkets. The air was filled with laughter and the smell of roasted vegetables and warm bread. Children ran about, playing with robotic animals designed to look like Earth creatures. Alara's eyes widened. "It's alive. Even with the cold and snow, it feels warm," Jace smiled. "That's humanity for you. We make life where there is none. We adapt, survive, and thrive. Sometimes it's messy, but it's ours." As they walked, a distant alarm rang from the edge of the settlement. The settlers froze, ears straining. Jace's hand went to his belt, where a small energy pistol rested. "What is it?" Alara asked, her voice calm but alert. "Probably a patrol sighting something. Maybe wildlife, maybe intruders. Stay close." They ran toward the source of the alarm. On the outskirts of the settlement, a small group of alien creatures had wandered too close. They were large, covered in thick fur, with glowing eyes that reflected the sunlight. The settlers had always respected them but feared their sudden aggression. Jace moved in front of Alara, signaling her to stay back. The creatures growled and stomped, curious but dangerous. He raised his voice. "Back! Go home!" They hesitated, then retreated slowly, spurred by the humans' presence and the loud shouts of other settlers. Alara watched closely, her mind processing the scene. She noticed patterns in the creatures' movements, predicting their next steps almost instinctively. "You see that?" she said softly to Jace. "They respond to direction. They're intelligent but cautious." Jace raised an eyebrow. "I've seen settlers study these creatures for years, and you just figured it out in seconds." She shrugged. "I just notice things. It's instinct, I guess." For the first time, Jace felt something stir inside him. Alara wasn't just human. She seemed extraordinary, but not in a way that frightened him, in a way that made him think humanity could rise above even the harshest worlds. The rest of the day passed with lessons in survival, farming alien crops, and understanding the colony's energy systems. Jace noticed how quickly Alara adapted. She asked questions, tried new things, and even suggested improvements. By evening, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the settlement bathed in the soft glow of the twin moons. Lights twinkled from cabins, and the distant mountains were painted in deep blue shadows. Jace and Alara stood on a small hill overlooking the settlement. The cold air bit at their faces, but they were warm from the day's exertions. "You've done a lot today," Jace said. "Most people wouldn't last a week here, but you've handled more in one day than most handle in months." Alara smiled a little shyly. "I feel like I'm meant to be here. I don't know why, but it feels right." Jace looked at her, feeling something he hadn't in years, a spark of hope, of connection. "Maybe you are. Maybe this is what we both needed. Life here, it's hard, but it's better with someone to share it with." Alara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the soft moonlight. "Then I'll stay, as long as you'll let me." Jace smiled. "You don't have to ask." For the first time in a long time, Jace felt the weight of loneliness lift. The frontier was still dangerous, the cold still harsh, but he was no longer alone. And somehow, he knew that Alara's presence was more than coincidence. Somewhere in the vast universe, perhaps even in the same moment he had made his wish, the stars had listened. And now, two humans were connected in a way that would change not only their lives but the future of the colony. As night fell fully, Jace led Alara back to the cabin. They lit the fire and the warmth spread through the small room. Outside the wind howled, but inside there was light, warmth, and the promise of something extraordinary. Alara settled near the fire, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "Do you think this is how miracles start?" she asked. Jace chuckled softly. "Maybe, or maybe it's just how humans survive and thrive. We make our own miracles, one small act at a time." And for the first time in a long while, Jace believed it. The stars above New Aurora shone brighter than ever, and for two humans standing on the edge of the frontier, the universe felt full of possibilities. The morning dawned cold and crisp, with the twin suns casting soft golden light over the snow-dusted plains of New Aurora. The settlement hummed with activity. Settlers were repairing fences, checking equipment, and preparing for the harsh winter that still lingered in patches across the alien world. Jace Callahan saddled Dust and led Alara outside, the wind nipping at their faces. "Ready for today?" he asked, tightening his coat. Alara nodded. "I think so. What's first?" "Patrol," Jace replied, climbing onto Dust. "We ride out along the northern ridge. The sensors picked up unusual readings last night. Could be wildlife, could be something else. Either way, we need to check." Alara mounted a smaller but sturdy horse that Jace had borrowed from the settlement. She seemed comfortable on it, her movements natural, confident. Jace couldn't help but notice how quickly she adapted to this strange, harsh world. As they rode toward the northern ridge, the wind howled around them, carrying the distant cries of alien creatures. The terrain was rough. Icy rocks and frozen ridges made travel difficult. Yet Alara rode without hesitation, scanning the landscape with sharp eyes. "What do you see?" Jace asked. Alara tilted her head, squinting at the horizon. "Movement. Over there," she said, pointing to a distant grove of alien trees. "Something circling, cautious but curious." Jace followed her gaze. Sure enough, several large creatures were moving through the grove. Their fur glimmered faintly in the morning sun, and their glowing eyes reflected intelligence, not mindless aggression. "Good eye," Jace said. "Most settlers wouldn't notice that until they were close. Let's see what they're up to." As they approached, the creatures hesitated, sizing them up. Jace held out a hand, a gesture settlers often used to show non-aggression. The creatures tilted their heads, watching but did not advance. Alara dismounted and slowly approached the nearest one, her hands open and calm. "Easy, we don't want to hurt you," she murmured. Jace watched in awe as the creature relaxed slightly, sensing her calm energy. "You've got away with them," he said softly. Alara shrugged. "I notice patterns, I respond to them. It's instinct, I guess." Their peaceful observation was interrupted by a distant alarm from the settlement. Jace's ears pricked. "Storm's coming in faster than expected. We should head back." The ride back was tense. Dark clouds rolled over the plains, carrying wind strong enough to knock small creatures off their feet. Snow began to fall, heavy and wet, reducing visibility. Jace led the way, but dust struggled against the icy ground. Alara stayed close, guiding her horse carefully through the storm. Halfway back, a cry rang out from the ridge above. A settlement worker had been caught in the wind and fallen, stranded on a slippery slope. Jace and Alara exchanged a glance, wordless but understanding. "Hold on," Jace shouted, spurring dust toward the worker. Alara followed, her smaller horse nimble on the icy ground. She reached out to help the worker while Jace secured dust. Together, they managed to pull him to safety, brushing the snow off and checking for injuries. The worker, shaken but unharmed, nodded in gratitude. "You two are like a team," he said, awe in his voice. "I've never seen anyone handle this kind of storm so calmly." Jace glanced at Alara. "She's different," he admitted quietly. "Quick, smart, and not afraid. Makes things easier." Alara blushed slightly but smiled. "I just try to help." By the time they returned to the settlement, the storm had fully arrived. Snow fell thickly, covering rooftops and streets, and the wind threatened to topple small structures. Settlers worked quickly, securing supplies and reinforcing walls. Jace and Alara went to the workshop to help repair damage caused by the storm. Broken generator panels, collapsed fences, and damaged supplies needed urgent attention. Alara quickly adapted to the tools and systems, moving with confidence that impressed even the most experienced settlers. "You really are something else," Jace said, handing her a wrench. "Most people would be lost with this equipment." "I learned fast," she replied simply. Hours passed. By evening, the storm had slowed, leaving a soft blanket of snow over the settlement. The air was quiet, except for the occasional creak of ice settling and distant animal cries. Jace and Alara trudged back to the cabin, exhausted but satisfied. Inside, the fire was already burning, casting warmth over the small room. Alara removed her wet coat and hung it by the fire. "This is nice," she said softly. "I didn't think I'd ever feel safe on a planet like this." "You're safe here," Jace replied, sitting beside her. "And you'll always be, not just from storms or creatures, but from the dangers of life itself." Alara's eyes lingered on him. "You make it sound so simple, but I know it's not. Life here, it's hard." "It is," Jace admitted. "But humans, we adapt. We endure, we protect each other. That's what makes us strong." Alara smiled, a quiet, thoughtful smile. "You really believe that, don't you?" Jace nodded. "I've seen it with my own eyes. Settlers surviving, thriving, even in the worst conditions. That's humanity. And you fit right in." Her gaze softened. "I want to be part of it. I want to learn everything. I want to help." Jace's heart warmed. He had wished for someone to share life with, someone who could understand the frontier's harsh beauty. And here she was, not just understanding it, but embracing it. The night deepened, and the stars above New Aurora shone brightly through the clear sky. Jace and Alara stepped outside for a moment, feeling the cold bite at their cheeks. "Look at that," Jace said, pointing to the horizon. The stars seemed to dance in strange patterns, auroras forming ribbons of green and purple over the mountains. Alara gasped. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it." "Most humans haven't," Jace said. "But we survive, explore, and adapt. We make life where there's none. That's our miracle." Alara's hand brushed his as they stood together. "Then maybe the universe brought me here for a reason, to help, to learn, and to be part of this." Jace felt a lump in his throat. Maybe it did. "And maybe it brought you here for me too." A soft snow began to fall again, covering the plains in white. Inside, the cabin was warm, filled with firelight and the quiet sense of safety. Outside, the frontier remained dangerous, wild, and unpredictable, but together they could face it. For the first time, Jace understood the full meaning of his wish. It wasn't just for companionship. It was for someone who could rise to meet the challenges of life on the frontier, someone who could think, adapt, and endure alongside him. And Alara was exactly that person. As they returned inside, Jace noticed a small trinket on the workshop table, an old ornament shaped like a star. He picked it up and handed it to Alara. "Here," he said, "for your first Christmas on New Aurora, something to remember today by." She took it, smiling warmly. "I'll treasure it." They spent the rest of the evening talking, sharing stories of their pasts, and planning for the days ahead. Jace found himself laughing more than he had in years, and Alara's curiosity and optimism breathed new life into the quiet cabin. Outside, the wind howled over the snow-covered plains, but inside, there was warmth, trust, and the spark of a bond that neither would forget. The frontier could be harsh, but together they were stronger. As Jace lay awake that night, listening to the soft breathing of Alara and the distant whispers of the wind, he realized something profound. Humanity was not just surviving on this strange planet, it was thriving, because of courage, resilience, and connections like this one. Alara, wherever she had come from, was now part of that, and together they would face the dangers, wonders, and mysteries of New Aurora. Somewhere deep in the stars, perhaps even beyond the reaches of human understanding, a wish had been answered. And the frontier had just become a little brighter. The morning light spilled over the snow-covered plains, soft and pale, as if the twin suns themselves were cautious not to wake the world too abruptly. Jace Callahan stood outside his cabin, brushing snow from Dust's coat. The morning air was sharp and clear, carrying distant echoes of wildlife. But today, Jace's thoughts were not on the frontier, nor the alien creatures grazing in the distance. His mind was on Alara. She had been with him for days now, learning, adapting, and helping the settlers. She had proven herself quick, clever, and capable beyond what Jace had expected from someone who had just appeared. Yet there was still something about her that he didn't understand. Alara emerged from the cabin, her coat open, her hair dusted with snow. Her eyes were thoughtful, almost distant. She looked at Jace and smiled faintly. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied. "You're quiet today, something on your mind." She hesitated, glancing toward the horizon. I feel like I'm meant to tell you something. But I'm not sure I should." Jace's heart skipped. He had felt the strange bond growing between them, but this could change everything. "You can tell me," he said firmly. "Whatever it is, it won't change what's happening here. We face things together, remember." Alara nodded slowly. "Yes, I need to explain who I really am, and maybe why I'm here." Jace listened intently as they walked toward the settlement. The cold wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of snow and pine. Settlers bustled about, securing supplies and checking machinery. The world moved on, indifferent to the secrets two humans were about to uncover. Ilara led Jace to a small clearing near the edge of the forest, away from prying eyes. She took a deep breath. Jace, I'm not ordinary, at least not entirely. Jace raised an eyebrow. Not ordinary. You've handled storms, creatures, and frontier work better than most settlers I know. That's saying something. She shook her head. No, I mean, I wasn't born like other humans. I was created in a way, a miracle maybe. The universe responded to your wish. Jace paused, trying to make sense of her words. My wish. You wish for someone to share your life with, she explained. Someone who could understand you, who could survive and thrive in this harsh world. I'd appeared because of that wish. Jace stared at her, incredulous. You're saying you're the answer to my Christmas wish? Ilara nodded, her eyes calm, steady. Yes. But I'm not just some wish made real. I embody what humans can be at their best: courage, intelligence, empathy, adaptability. I'm here to show you that humanity is stronger than it seems, even in a place like this. Jace ran a hand over his face. He had spent years surviving, relying only on his skills, his instincts, and the strength of the settlers around him. He had never expected this. So, you're human, but not exactly human. I'm human in every way that matters, she said. I think, I feel, I learn. But I was created to rise to challenges like this frontier, to help humans survive and thrive in the most impossible situations. Jace walked closer, studying her. The wind whipped around them, carrying a scattering of snowflakes. Why? Why tell me this now? Because you need to know, she said. Because we're about to face something that will test both of us, and you need to trust me. Jace's heart pounded. He had trusted Ilara from the moment he saw her on the platform, but this revelation added a new weight. I trust you, he said finally. Whatever comes, we face it together. Ilara smiled, relief flickering in her eyes. Thank you. As they returned to the settlement, a sense of unease lingered. The settlers were busy securing supplies and repairing damage from the previous storm, but the calm was deceptive. Jace noticed unusual tracks in the snow near the northern ridge, creatures larger than anything they had seen before, moving with a silent, purposeful rhythm. Something's out there, he muttered. Ilara knelt, examining the tracks. These aren't ordinary animals. Their gait is too calculated, almost intelligent. Jace frowned. We need to check it out, prepare for anything. By midday, they were riding toward the northern ridge again. Dust's hooves crunched over the icy ground as Jace led the way. Ilara followed, her eyes scanning every detail. She seemed to sense things before they happened, noticing subtle shifts in the wind, patterns in the terrain, and distant movements that Jace would have missed. As they reached the ridge, they saw them, three massive alien creatures, larger than the ones they had encountered before. Their eyes glowed faintly, but their movements were deliberate, almost tactical. They were watching the settlement as if planning something. Jace felt a chill. They're not attacking yet, but they're observing. Ilara studied them carefully. They're intelligent, not hostile by nature, but testing boundaries. They'll retreat if we show strength, but we have to be careful. Together they approached, maintaining calm and steady movements. Jace spoke softly, guiding Dust with precise commands, while Ilara mirrored his actions, her intuition guiding her. Slowly the creatures stepped back, their curiosity satisfied for now. See, Ilara said. We can handle them if we stay focused. Jace nodded, impressed. You really are extraordinary. I've never seen anyone like you. Ilara's face softened. I'm here because of you, and because of what humans can do. We adapt, survive, and rise to challenges. That's why I exist. As they returned to the settlement, Jace realized that Ilara's presence was not just a miracle, it was a lesson. Humanity could rise to challenges that seemed impossible, and they had someone to guide and inspire them in that journey. The evening arrived quietly, with the twin suns setting behind the mountains. Settlers gathered in the central square, sharing stories and preparing for a modest Christmas celebration. Jace and Ilara walked among them, observing the resilience and camaraderie of the colony. "Do you see that?" Jace asked. "All of this life, community, laughter, even in the cold and danger, that's humanity." Alara nodded, her eyes reflecting the warm lights. "It's beautiful. I can see why you wished for companionship. This world needs it." Jace felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had faced storms, creatures, and loneliness, but now he understood that connection and trust were just as important as survival skills. Alara had brought that understanding, and together they were stronger than ever. As night fell, they returned to the cabin. The fire burned bright, casting flickering shadows across the walls. Alara sat near the flames, her hands warm from the heat. "Jace," she began softly, "I want you to know, whatever happens, I'll stay. I'm here to help, to learn, and to share this life with you, not because of the wish, but because I choose to." Jace looked at her, feeling a surge of emotion. "I've spent years wishing for someone like you, and now I've found her, you. I don't care if it's a miracle or not. You're here, and that's enough." Outside, the wind carried the distant sounds of the frontier, snow shifting, creatures moving, settlers talking. But inside the cabin there was warmth, safety, and trust. Alara leaned back, her eyes on the fire. "I still have questions," she admitted, "about who I am, where I came from, and why exactly I appeared, but I think we'll discover the answers together." Jace nodded, taking her hand. "We will. Whatever comes, we face it together." For the first time in weeks, Jace felt fully at peace. The frontier was still harsh, the planet still unpredictable, but he was no longer alone. And now, with Alara by his side, he realized something deeper. The true strength of humanity wasn't just in survival. It was in connection, trust, and the courage to face the unknown together. The stars above New Aurora sparkled brightly, a reminder of the vast universe beyond their small settlement. And somewhere out there, perhaps in ways they could not understand, the universe had answered a wish, bringing two humans together to rise, survive, and thrive in the most extraordinary way. And as Jace and Alara sat by the fire, the quiet hum of the frontier outside, they knew that the days ahead would test them. But with trust, courage, and hope, they could face anything. Because miracles weren't just magic. Miracles were humans, resilient, brave, and capable of extraordinary things. And they were living proof. The morning air was sharp, filled with the scent of snow and pine, as Jace Callahan saddled Dust for the first ride of Christmas morning. The twin suns were just rising, casting a soft orange glow over New Aurora's snow-covered plains. Today, the settlement buzzed with quiet anticipation. Even in the harsh frontier, Christmas had a way of bringing people together, reminding them that life was worth celebrating. Alara emerged from the cabin, her coat fastened snugly and a small satchel strapped across her shoulder. She smiled at Jace, a warmth in her expression that outshone the sun's. "Ready for today?" Jace asked, adjusting his hat. Alara nodded. "I've never been ready for anything like this, but I think I am," Jace chuckled softly. "You've handled storms, wild creatures, and frontier dangers. This is just another adventure. Let's go." They rode through the settlement, passing settlers carrying supplies and gifts. Children ran alongside them, laughter echoing across the plains, their robotic animals clattering through the snow. The warmth of community contrasted sharply with the cold, alien world around them. Jace felt it in his chest, a sense of belonging he had not known for years. The first stop was the outlying homes of settlers who lived far from the central square. Some were hunters, others herders, and a few were engineers maintaining equipment in harsh, isolated conditions. Each stop brought smiles, hugs, and gratitude. Jace and Alara helped carry supplies, checked on generators, and shared laughter with the children, who were fascinated by Alara's stories of appearing from nowhere. As they moved through the plains, Jace noticed distant movement, shadows slipping through the snow. He tensed, instincts kicking in. "Alara, look!" Three large alien creatures, the ones they had seen near the northern ridge, were approaching. Their glowing eyes reflected intelligence, not aggression. But their calculated movements suggested they were testing the settlers' strength and resolve. Alara studied them carefully, her eyes narrowing. They're assessing us, seeing if we can handle them. They've been watching, learning. Jace nodded. We've faced worse. Let's show them what humans can do. The two humans dismounted, standing between the creatures and the settlement. Jace's voice was calm but firm. Back. We mean no harm, but we will defend our people. Alara stepped beside him, hands raised in a mirrored stance, her calm presence reinforcing his words. Slowly, the creatures stopped advancing. They circled, observing, but made no sudden moves. The bond between Jace and Alara, trust, confidence, and understanding, radiated outward. You see that? Alara said softly. They respect strength, but they sense peace too. We're showing both. Jace smiled, awe in his eyes. You're incredible. I've never seen anyone handle this the way you do. The creatures eventually retreated, moving back toward the ridge. Their glowing eyes lingered on the settlement, then vanished into the distance. Jace exhaled deeply. That was close, but they know we can handle them. Alara nodded. It's not just us, it's the people here. They're strong. That's why they respect boundaries. With the threat gone, Jace and Alara resumed their journey, continuing to deliver supplies and spread cheer. By midday, they had visited every outlying home, leaving warmth and hope in their wake. Settlers marveled at how efficiently they worked together, adapting to challenges with ingenuity and courage. Back at the central square, the settlement had set up a small celebration. Fires burned brightly, warming the hands and hearts of everyone present. Settlers brought food, decorations, and music adapted from old Earth traditions. Children ran through the snow, their laughter mingling with the soft hum of robotic animals. Jace and Alara stood together, watching. It's beautiful, Alara said softly. Jace nodded. It is. But it's more than that. It's humanity. Even in the harshest worlds, we find ways to survive, to thrive, to celebrate life. Alara smiled. And we make miracles happen, not magic, but human strength, courage, and hope. Jace reached for her hand, holding it gently. You are part of that miracle. Not because you appeared, but because of who you are. You've shown me that humanity can rise to any challenge, and that connection, trust, can make all the difference. Alara's eyes glimmered. I'm here because of you, and because of what humans can do together. We adapt, we survive, we rise. As night fell, the twin moons rose over the horizon, bathing the settlement in soft light. Jace and Alara led a ceremonial ride to deliver gifts to the most isolated settlers. Dusk carried Jace steadily, while Alara's horse moved gracefully beside him. The small procession wound through snow-covered paths, the lights from their torches reflecting off the icy terrain. At each home, they left supplies and gifts, greeted with joy and gratitude. Children clutched small trinkets, settlers thanked them repeatedly, and the warmth of community spread through the cold night. At one particularly remote home, Jace noticed signs of damage, a generator malfunction and a collapsed fence. Alara quickly assessed the situation. We can fix this, she said. Together, they repaired the generator and reinforced the fence, working efficiently under the soft glow of torchlight. The settlers watched in awe, marveling at their skill and determination. You really make life here possible, one of the settlers said. Alara smiled. We all do together, but sometimes it helps to have someone who can see the patterns, who can adapt quickly. By the time they returned to the central square, the entire settlement had gathered around the main fire. Music played, stories were shared, and laughter echoed through the night. Jace and Alara stood side by side, watching the warmth they had helped create. Jace leaned closer. You know, when I made that wish, I never imagined this. I never imagined you. Alara looked at him, her eyes soft. Maybe that's how miracles work. We don't always see the outcome coming, but they show up just when we need them most. The crowd cheered as the final gifts were delivered, and a soft snowfall began, dusting the settlement in white. Children ran through the flakes, adults shared food and laughter, and the twin moons reflected off the snowy plains. Jace turned to Alara. This is what I wanted. Not just someone to share the day with, but someone to share life with. Someone to face challenges, to celebrate victories, to survive and thrive together. Alara smiled warmly. Then we found it together. As the night deepened, the wind quieted, leaving only the soft rustle of snow and the distant sounds of alien creatures. Jace and Alara returned to the cabin, exhausted but content. The fire burned bright, filling the room with warmth and light. Alara sat near the flames, her small satchel beside her. I still have questions, she admitted, about where I came from, why I appeared, and what I'm meant to do, but I think the answers will come with time. Jace nodded. We'll find them together. Whatever comes, we face it side by side. They spent the remainder of Christmas night sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments of connection. The settlement's celebrations continued outside, but inside, Jace and Alara experienced a different kind of warmth, the kind born from trust, hope, and the extraordinary strength of humanity. As dawn approached, Jace stepped outside for a moment, looking out over the settlement. The snow glistened under the twin moons, the frontier quiet but alive. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, the universe had answered a wish. But Jace knew now that the true miracle wasn't magic, it was human courage, resilience, and the connections they forged in the face of impossible odds. Alara joined him, her hand slipping into his. It's beautiful, she said softly. Yes, Jace replied. But not just the snow or the lights or the celebrations, it's the people, the courage, the trust, the way humans make life extraordinary. She leaned against him, and for a moment the harsh frontier seemed gentle, even welcoming. The cold, alien world no longer felt lonely. With each other, with the settlement, they had found something extraordinary, the strength of humanity and the bond of shared hope. The stars above New Aurora sparkled like scattered diamonds, silent witnesses to the lives below. And somewhere deep in the universe, a wish had been answered, not with magic but with the best of what humans could offer: courage, adaptability, empathy, and love. Jace and Alara stayed outside until the sun rose fully, painting the snowy plains with gold. Dust and Alara's horse grazed nearby, their breath steaming in the cold morning air. The settlement slowly awakened, ready to continue life in the frontier, stronger, united, and full of hope. Jace took Alara's hand, squeezing gently. Whatever the future holds, we can face it. Together, Alara smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Together. The frontier remained harsh, full of unknown dangers and challenges. But for the first time in years, Jace Callahan felt truly at peace. The universe had answered a wish, yes, but the real miracle was human resilience, courage, and connection. And as the settlement of New Aurora thrived beneath the twin suns, two humans rode forward into their future, brave, hopeful, and ready for anything. Because miracles were not just wishes come true. Miracles were humans, rising to meet life with courage, trust, and love, and they had become one.